Hello there, welcome to another episode of World of Tanks with Ngani Titan. I've had it for a while now actually. I unlocked the ISU 152 around the same time that I unlocked the A44. And I found that in general the ISU 152 suffers from the same problems that this line of tank destroyers starts to have from the SU 100 onwards. Prior to the SU 100, you're talking about fairly small, generally open-topped tank destroyers with little or no armour, reasonably stealthy, fast-firing guns. Gun handling mightn't be great, but the guns are fast-firing, and you get out you can send a lot of stuff down range. And they're hard-hitting when they connect up. They hit fairly solidly, and you can generally do quite a bit of damage with them. Now, I suppose in my experience when I was playing those tank destroyers, it's 3 years ago now, and the game was a bit different. I think there's less scouting going on in the current game, but also I think there's certainly since Christmas I've noticed a lot of washout games where the game ends in less than 5 minutes with like a 10-5 or 10 plus whatever victory. And it's very hard with slow tanks with good, not very manoeuvrable tanks. You can see the rate of turn here. Those kind of tanks with poor enough gun handling and poor accuracy to make a big impact on a game where the game ends that quickly and that one-sidedly. Because generally in a one-sided game, if you're going to make a big impact in a one-sided game, you've got to be right in the thick of it from right at the beginning. That tends to favour fast manoeuvrable tanks or heavy tanks that just happen to go in the right direction, because the heavy tanks will have the armour to survive the initial contact. And the guns that will sort of deliver some amount of damage, whereas lighter tanks or medium tanks, well, they can arrive on the fringes of the combat, but tank destroyers and stuff like that are at a disadvantage because they usually have little or no armour. And if they have lots of armour, they tend to be quite slow, and they won't arrive anyway. And as I was saying, starting with the SU-100, this tank line becomes more and more unwieldy. The guns become very inaccurate. The best gun is generally the last one. It's usually very hard hitting, and while it still has poor gun handling, when it works, when you get the shots in and actually make the shots count, you do enormous amounts of damage, so you can have a very satisfying game that way. And the thing is also that you'll generally statistically do quite well in these tanks, because normally about 2 hits is enough to get your fire for effect. However, the downside for that hard-hitting, powerful gun is that you have an increasingly less stealthy, less mobile gun platform, and you generally can't work at long range because the accuracy just isn't there. So you're generally trying to be 300 to 400 meter or even less, 200 to 300 meter range, and trying to survive and get your shots off in that kind of a range when you're generally spotted every time you fire can be quite difficult. Now, the SU-100 has a good slope to the armour, so when it's top tier it will bounce quite a lot of shots. The SU-152 doesn't, and will bounce a lot less shots, but has a very hard hitting gun when you unlock the top gun. The same is true for the ISU-152, but the thing is, when you're top tier, you're facing more and more powerful tanks, and I find as well lately, especially tier 8, the tier 8 tanks see a lot of tier 10 games. It's very frequent that you can be on a tier 8 tank, just maybe 2 or 3 tier 8 tanks making up the numbers in a tier 10 match, and that can be quite a miserable experience, because tier 9 and tier 10 tanks, quite a lot of them will remove half to 3/4 of your health in a single shot, and it's not like it's a difficult tank to penetrate. So, in the case of the ISU 152, I actually free XP'd. I actually converted XP to get the BL 10 gun because it was pretty painful with the lower, with the 122mm guns. You're doing about 390 average damage. And you were, well, the armor piercing, it bounced a lot of armor piercing, largely due to the inaccuracy and the range at which you were operating on. So if you haven't unlocked this tank, my advice would be to accumulate a lot of free XP if you have the patience to do so. And then go in and play it and just spend the minimum amount of time possible on the lower guns and go straight to the final gun. You'll still probably get good games in it. You'll get games, if you have the right team and things go well, you're going to do really well. Because if you get 6-7 damaging hits from this gun, you're going to be doing enormous damage. I mean, even if you use, I think with the BL 10 gun myself, I'm swinging towards using the armor piercing rounds. I've tried it with just mostly firing high explosives, and you are doing about 200 to 400 points of damage on average with high explosives, but generally you're not going to get the shots off. You're not going to get well, you want to be very good to get 10 shots off on a ISU 152. So given that limitation, you're probably going to get only 5 or 6 shots off at best. You are probably better off using the armor piercing rounds and the premium armor piercing rounds with your 700 damage, because you'll get the penetrations there, and 5 sevens is 3,500. And if you do get a really good game where you get 10 penetrations, that's 7,000 average damage, which is going to be respectable in anyone's book. Whereas with the high explosive, it's much more variable, and yes, you will cause damage every time you hit, but it's not the oh my god, what just happened kind of scary damage that that you get on a penetration. I mean, yes, if you're one of the few tier 8s on a predominantly I don't know, tier 6 battle or something like that, then you'll absolutely murder tanks, and you're probably better off loading high explosives from the get-go, because there's a good chance you will one-shot tier 6 and tier 7 light and medium tanks, tank destroyers. But that's going to be pretty situational. It's not a loadout that I would recommend, because the amount of times that you'll get to play it will be pretty small. The other thing I've noticed with this line is that the gun traverse gets worse as well as we move up. The SU-100 is a pretty decent gun traverse before you have to move the hull, whereas the SU-152, it's less, and this tank is less again. I know from experience of being on the other side of it, the Object 704 is a very formidable tank, the one that this is unlocked after you move on from this tank. But I don't know what it's going to be like to play, given that so far the line has been getting worse, I think, relative to the previous tank. So we'll see, I suppose, at some point. I'll definitely will continue down the line. And of course I will have a better and better crew. The crew, it's worth mentioning, I suppose, that the crew is primarily focused on gun handling, repair. I have reconnaissance skill, but I haven't any other view range skill. I have Brothers in Arms, of course, and I haven't attempted to make any stealth skills, because I just felt the line didn't benefit from stealthy kind of play. Trying to be a stealth tank destroyer on these tanks isn't the kind of thing that they need to do. That said, stealth skills can make fairly unstealthy tanks, moderately stealthy. My experience with the British tank destroyers is that having crews that if you have lots of skills and you're into the 9-10 skills, that perhaps adding stealth skills to the tank might make a difference. I don't know. It's just I haven't attempted it, nor have I attempted any serious attempt to hide this tank. So overall, very situational, I think. This is a tank that you will probably have really great games, and they'll probably be very memorable games. But there will come few and far between, and most of the time you'll have just kind of unsatisfying games in many respects. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't already done so, please consider giving the channel a subscription. Once again, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all again soon.